One morning at home, Emma watches a cat drowning in the fountain in her yard. She feels nothing for the poor creature and closes the curtains before getting ready for school. She marks the calendar and fixes all her trophies, showing she's a very organized and talented girl. While having breakfast with her widower father David, she tells him that her school will give a medal to the ideal student this month and her goal is to win it. She also wonders if David will keep dating, but swears it doesn't bother her. At that moment, her Aunt Angela arrives and informs them she's found a new nanny for Emma. Emma says she doesn't want a new nanny after her last one died. She wants Angela to take care of her. However, Angela already has a job. Then Emma tells them about the dead cat in the fountain, and David has to retrieve the body. At school, a wasp enters the classroom and all the kids panic. Emma stays calm and uses a cup to trap the wasp, which she then releases through the window. Milo wonders how she did that. So Emma explains there's a nest in her backyard, and her dad taught her that wasps only attack when they feel threatened. Meanwhile, David interviews Chloe and hires her as the new nanny, so she'll be starting next week. Later, Emma overhears Milo admiring another girl's watch. When the girl goes out to play, Emma makes her fall on purpose while making it look like she trips. Then she helps the girl up to look good in front of the teacher, but she's secretly stealing her watch. In the evening, Emma practices in front of the mirror how to smile and appear sweet and innocent. The next morning, she dresses up in her best dress and asks her dad for help to look perfect. The school has a big ceremony and the one to win the merit medal is Milo. Emma claps along with everyone, but it's clear by her foot tapping that she's very annoyed. After the ceremony, David talks to Mrs. Ellis, who tells him that Emma is a brilliant student, but she lives in her own world. During the after-party, Emma tells David that she deserved that medal and lists all of Milo's flaws. David scolds her, so Emma apologizes and says she's happy for her friend. Afterward, while the adults are chatting, Emma invites Milo to play in the forest. They reach the top of a cliff by the ocean and Milo gets worried when Emma starts acting creepy. Minutes later, Emma returns to the party and tries to convince David to leave. When Milo's parents ask about him, Emma says she hasn't seen him in a while. Suddenly, some kids start screaming because they found Milo's body on the shore. His parents rush to retrieve him and give him CPR, but it's too late. That night, David talks to Angela about what happened. He admits he's worried about how this will affect Emma, who spies on them from the other room. In the morning, David tries to get Emma to talk about how she feels about Milo's death, but she says there's nothing to talk about. Soon Chloe arrives and David gives her a tour of the house before leaving. Later, Chloe finds some medicine in the bathroom and steals a few tablets. Then she watches a movie with Emma and says she thinks the story is stupid, which Emma doesn't appreciate. When Chloe asks what she thinks about Milo's death, Emma explains it doesn't matter if she's sad because he's dead anyway. Chloe also asks if David has a girlfriend, while pretending it's just casual conversation. Emma explains David dated someone for a while, but she didn't like her, so he dumped her. She also reveals that she saw Emma stealing, so she blackmails her. Now Emma can stay past her bedtime and eat ice cream with cookies while making Chloe serve her. Sometime later, Milo's funeral is held at the school, and everyone cries except for Emma. David talks to Milo's mom and learns that the medal is missing. She asks him to send her any pictures he has of the party. When they go home, David cleans Emma's room and almost finds the medal under the bed, but Emma distracts him just in time. Then David checks the pictures and notices Emma constantly staring at the medal. The next day, Ellis visits David with the lawyer. It turns out Emma was seen entering the woods with Milo, and they want to know if she saw or heard anything. Milo couldn't swim, so it was strange that he climbed to the top of the cliff. Chloe notices Emma spying on the meeting and guesses what she did. When the lawyer explains that Emma could have killed Milo, Emma breaks a cookie jar in the kitchen on purpose to create a distraction. Ellis and the lawyer decide to leave while David takes care of Emma's wound. He asks her if she knew anything and she swears she doesn't. She also calls Ellis a liar, saying she's always hated her. Emma even pretends she's sad about Milo's death to get her father off her back. Afterward, David takes a shower. When he comes out, he finds Chloe waiting in his room and she claims she was just there to ask a question. The next morning, Chloe approaches David in his workshop and he asks her how Emma is doing. Chloe pretends she adores the girl, but she's more interested in talking about David's private life. In the afternoon, Chloe takes Emma for a walk and tells her that David has been asking a lot of questions about her because she's suspicious, but Chloe claims that she's been protecting Emma. The duo stops walking when they notice Ellis visiting Milo's house and Chloe taunts Emma, pointing out that she needs to get a good story because the police are getting closer to the truth. When they return home, Emma reminds Chloe that she knows about the stolen medicine, so if she talks, Emma will do the same. Chloe isn't afraid and shares a creepy description of murderers dying in the electric chair. Sometime later, Chloe looks for Emma, but she can't find her anywhere. She doesn't notice that the wasp nest is gone. When she searches the bedroom, she finds the medal hidden under the bed. Meanwhile, Ellis leaves in her car, where she's suddenly startled by a wasp. She panics and the car loses control, but thankfully she stops it just in time. After opening the window to make the wasp leave, she keeps driving, unaware of the nest stuck on the back of her seat. After work, David comes home but doesn't see the medal hanging on his bedroom lamp. When Emma comes to say hi to him, she sees the medal and immediately takes it. David notices she's trying to sneak out with something hidden in her hands, and forces her to show him what. Chloe hears this and tells David that she found the metal under the bed while cleaning. Emma tries to say she doesn't know how the metal got there, but David interrogates her until she talks about the incident. She says that they went to the forest to play a game, and because she won, Milo let her wear the medal, but she doesn't know where he went afterward. David scolds her for hiding it since Milo's mom wanted to bury him with it, and Emma thinks that's a stupid idea. Afterward, David leaves in his car and calls Angela to ask her to recommend a psychiatrist for Emma. On the road, he sees a car accident surrounded by cops and paramedics, but he doesn't stop to see who the victim was. That night, David dreams about his pregnant wife and Alice appearing as a doctor to tell them there was something wrong with their daughter. In the morning, he finds Chloe dead in the fountain, and Emma says it was Milo, who appears as a walking dead body. However, this is part of the dream too. During breakfast, Emma calls Chloe out for revealing the medal, and Chloe calls her a little psycho. Then David takes Emma to Milo's house and forces her to hand over the medal, while repeating the same story. Milo's mom doesn't know how to react and explains she's still shaken because she just learned that Ellis is dead. Her car crashed because there was a wasp nest in her car. Emma claims that this makes her really sad because Ellis was her favorite teacher, and she convinces her dad to go home. On their street, Emma says this means they don't have to talk about Milo anymore, and happily runs while asking for cupcakes. Later at his workshop, David notices that the wasp nest is missing. That night, he does some research about kids' pathologies and realizes that Emma may be a sociopath. Next day, he tells Emma that he'll take her to the doctor, but he doesn't see the blood in her hand. At the doctor's office, David talks first and explains Emma's lack of emotions. Then the doctor chats with Emma, who says there's nothing wrong with her. When the doctor brings up Milo, Emma claims that she cried for 2 days. They talk for a while and David is shocked to hear laughter. The doctor concludes Emma is fine and sends her home while assuring David he doesn't need to worry. When they arrive home, David finds Chloe wearing provocative clothes while sunbathing. Then Chloe checks on Emma and teases her for not having any friends. She confirms she's trying to date David, and Emma tells her to stay away from her father, but Chloe reminds her that she isn't afraid of her. That night, David has a date, and before he leaves, Emma tells him she doesn't want a stepmother ever. While Chloe is watching TV, the lights start to flicker. Then she hears a noise and follows it until she sees someone in the workshop. She goes inside and the door suddenly closes behind her. She tries to open it to no avail, so she screams for help. The other door then also closes and activates a trap that lights the room on fire. Emma is watching through the window, so Chloe punches the glass, but this only hurts her. She steps back in pain and the flames immediately spread on her body to kill her, which Chloe enjoys watching. Moments later, David comes home to find the cops and the firemen. They inform him that Chloe is dead and the workshop is nothing but ashes, causing David to throw up. David runs to hug Emma, who has told the cops that Chloe liked to smoke in the workshop. After the authorities leave, David forces Emma to tell him the truth about the cliff. Emma claims that she took the medal and Milo got very angry, so she only pushed him to keep him away. Him falling had only been an accident, and Emma didn't believe him when he yelled that he couldn't swim. Next, David asks about the first nanny, so Emma explains that the lady grabbed her arm and she kicked her, causing her to fall down the stairs. Very coldly, Emma says her nanny was the adult, so she should have protected herself better. David yells at Emma when he confirms she was behind Chloe's and Ella's deaths too. Emma yells back, saying that she doesn't want a stepmother and complaining because her dad wouldn't do anything about Chloe stealing. Afterward, David tries to call the doctor, but she's away on vacation. The next morning, the sheriff calls David because he needs to interrogate him and his daughter. David tells him that Emma is very sick and he's got a few busy days of work, so they arrange a meeting for Monday. Then David wakes Emma up and makes her pack so they can leave. After a long car trip, they make it to the lake house, which David usually hates. Housekeeper Brian takes a moment to welcome them before going to his shack. In the evening, David calls Angela to tell her where they are and remembers that there's a gun in the night table. Later, the sheriff calls David to inform him that the workshop fire was started on purpose, and the lab will be able to tell them who did it soon. After hanging up, he goes to the bathroom, where a shadow creeps behind the shower curtains. Suddenly, a burnt hand grabs David and he screams when he finds Chloe's body in the tub, but this is just a dream. The next day, David ignores his phone when the sheriff tries calling him again. Emma goes for a walk in the forest, and when she comes back, she finds her dad watching a documentary about sociopaths. David gets a text from the sheriff asking him to talk, but he ignores that too. He then notices Emma watching him and admits he doesn't trust her anymore. That night, David keeps staring at the gun while wondering what to do. After David falls asleep, Emma kisses his cheek and opens every gas valve in the house before leaving for the lake. The strong smell wakes David up and he immediately runs downstairs to close all the valves, saving himself just in time. He sees Emma by the lake and approaches her to ask her why. So Emma explains she wants to live with Angela. David takes her hand and brings her back inside. After staring at his wife's picture for a while, David crushes some sedative medicine and puts it in a mug for Emma. She asks for whipped cream, so he leaves her mug with his to go grab it. They drink chocolate together until Emma falls asleep. Afterward, David calls Angela to tell her everything Emma did, but she doesn't believe him. He also announces he had to make a hard choice. In the middle of the night, Emma wakes up and goes to David's room. She puts the gun in his hand and fires, but the shot misses and lands on the pillow instead. David wakes up and realizes he can't move much because Emma changed the mugs, so he drank the sedatives. He manages to disarm Emma, who grabs his phone instead. As David falls off the bed to grab the gun, Emma calls 911 and starts screaming that her dad wants to kill her as she runs to the bathroom to lock herself up. David follows her and kicks the door down before raising the gun. At that moment, Brian appears behind him and Emma cries for help again. The police sirens can be heard nearby, so David gets ready to shoot, but Brian shoots him first. David takes a final breath before he falls dead. Minutes later, the cops arrive and Brian tells them that David wanted to kill Emma. Angela also comes and says that David was sick before hugging Emma, who smirks with satisfaction. Make sure to subscribe and turn